Home is where connections are made, memories are formed, and ideas are born. And no one knows home better than NFM. Thanks for tuning in to I Am Home, the podcast that goes deeper than trends and dives into what it means to make your house a home.
Hello, you're listening to I Am Home, the all things home life podcast. I'm Tyler Weiskup, joined by my co-host who has the tactical mind of an esports champion and the effortless charm of your favorite streamer. It's Becca Sudbeck.
Oh, hi, Tyler.
Hi, Becca. And of course, I'm also joined by the game changer herself. It's Hilary Waltemath.
Hey.
Hi, Hilary. What was that? That feels like there's an extra accent on the hey. You don't feel like a game changer? I always introduce you that way to all my friends.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Good.
thank
Okay,
you.
I'm glad we're on the same page. So all month long, we've been talking about cozy comfort. Our topic today, if you didn't quite get it, we are talking gaming cave. It's going to hit all the right buttons for you. More specifically, it's like more of your PC gaming. And we have an extra special guest helping us through it. But before we get to her, I want to tell you why we're even doing this podcast. And that's because NFM is more than just your everything home store. We're in the business of improving lifestyles because your home life should be your best life. You can learn more at nfm.com. And again, our theme this month is cozy comfort. And this episode is going to be especially nice because comfort is really important to e-gaming. And again, we're lucky enough to have joining us for this episode a gaming expert in Julie Garrison. Hi, Julie.
Hello.
It's so glad to have you on the podcast. And Julie, you gave us, we were just talking about this before we jumped on the mic, a very awesome intro of your knowledge and expertise in this area. You've been with NFM for 9 years, getting close to 9 years. You're our current lead copywriter, word whiz, all of that kind of stuff. And your expertise in gaming really began as like being that tech kid growing up.
Yeah,
you know, we always
absolutely.
I think there's always one of those kind of people in the family, the person that you just go to,
Mm-hmm.
who knows everything about like how, unplug it, plug it back in, and
Yeah.
and then more of your advanced knowledge.
I knew how to get it to channel 3 on the TV so that we could play the Super Nintendo.
Exactly right. So, and it's only really grown. I think your love and passion for gaming as like the technology has evolved and the world building, I know has been especially important to you, because of just how much you can like actually get into games versus like being fed content. You can like really experience it and broaden your mind and pick your own path. And a lot of this kind of stuff is what you love about gaming. Absolutely.
It's a lot different than like going back to the Super Nintendo era, playing like Link to the Past, where it's just your cute little sprite on the screen, saving the kingdom. And then we move into like where video games are today. And it's like, all right, put on this headset, save the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're there, I'm holding a sword and I'm ready to fight.
Yeah.
And so we're just really in an era of video games that you're spoiled for choice in like, not just how you play, but what you play and the kinds of experiences you get.
Yeah.
So that's what makes gaming so exciting to me and why I'm like so comfortable talking about it and spending like hundreds of hours on it, I guess, a year.
Yeah.
So,
and I think you're not alone in that feeling. There's a lot of people who really love that. And we want to kind of help people who are interested, who are trying to find their path in gaming to kind of get them started. And I feel like you're the perfect person to kind of lead us through this conversation. So thanks so much for being here.
For sure.
And I wonder if we can start by just setting up your space in general. What would you consider to be kind of some of the key elements to consider when setting up kind of a dedicated, as we're calling it here, game cave at home?
So I think the first thing you're going to want to consider before you like even buy a piece of furniture or whatever is think about how you want to game. Because like I said, a lot of options, a lot of like choices you can make. And there are probably about like 4 or 5 primary ways when we're looking at PC gaming to go into that. Because with PC gaming, you could be doing it the traditional way at a desk with monitors and your keyboard and stuff. And then the other options are, it's just as easy to PC game these days on a couch. Do you want that kind of den living space where you're relaxed in your chaise lounge or kicking back in a recliner, playing games on the TV? Another option could be maybe you want that VR space. So you want to make sure you have a nice clear little area where you're going to have your goggles on and you're punching at the air or whatever.
Yeah.
There are some accessories even that like are a dish you stand in and it lets you run in place, which is pushing it a little bit for me when it comes to realism in controls. I do like a little bit of that, like it's still a video game
Yeah.
sort of thing. But you also have PC handhelds, which are a really cool thing too, because you get to do something like having a comfortable den where you have a show or a movie or something on already, and then you're playing a PC game in your hands, kind of like you would do with a Nintendo Switch, but you have that wider library of games that the PC offers.
I don't know if as many, like if someone who has like a passing knowledge in gaming, like they really understand like these handhelds and like how cool and slick they are.
They are super neat.
Yeah.
I think like you look at what you can do with a Nintendo Switch and then it's like, imagine that, but even more games and like even more customizability that makes it really cool. And then so having that basis of like, how do I want to play as the start really helps, because once you have that down, then you can start making all sorts of little choices like, well, what do I want my desk to look like and feel like? Or what do I want for just like a good den or like lounging area? Those are the kind of things that, you know, people are always trying to figure out, because a lot of people want to have that nice space in their home to just kick back.
Yeah.
VR is a little different because obviously you want to, you know, be safe and maybe just like put some pillows around the room. So if you trip and fall, you fall like softly, but
like have a padded closet or something that you existed.
Honestly, like most games I've seen in VR, thankfully you can do them completely fine just sitting down.
Yeah.
One of the challenges is that like I've seen people who play VR games and they have their they'll like go to lean on the counter in a game because it like looks 3D and then they just like start to go down.
Not actually there.
Yeah, exactly. And then so it's just a little bit of that safety aspect as well. Like that's probably the big concern with VR gaming is if you're not doing it as part of a PC setup, because you can link your VR headset to your PC. There's all sorts of ways to do that. And even the ones, especially the ones we sell, the Metas, they can connect to your PC through a service called, I think it's Steam Link, where you connect like the headset itself to be able to use it to play whatever game in VR that you got on Steam or on your PC.
Yeah.
So once you get past that aspect of like, all right, so you have that general idea of the room, you have the idea of like how you want to play, then you can start picking out your furniture, stuff. And stuff will change really depending on like where you want your setup to go, but some things are always going to be consistent. Cable management, you just got to know where the cables go. I think a nice change that we've seen is like wireless connections are becoming a lot better, but I still run into issues with sometimes a Bluetooth headset doesn't like to stay connected, or sometimes a wireless controller runs into issues, and there's that little bit of troubleshooting that's like sort of the cost of wanting to have such a customizable experience. I think the nice part though about stores like NFM is our staff are very well trained to help people figure those aspects out.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it brings up a good point. I mean, just the general idea of like understanding what kind of game that you want to get into, like, and that's how you're really going to expand out your space from there. I mean, because there are so many options, like you said. We are spoiled for choice. I really like that term that you brought up. I'm curious specifically for you. I know that you're an apartment liver. How have you personalized your game cave?
So here's what I've done is I have basically a very thin writing desk that I actually chose. See, most people would think like, oh, you have to get a gaming desk if you're going to game. Not necessarily. Okay. It really comes down to what features you want. I like that mine could sort of fit in the corner and it's a very nice like vertical shape. but I could put it side by side with our TV console.
Oh, nice.
And so my monitor, or my tower for my computer, my desktop, basically the big box, it goes on top of the TV console. And so I have an HDMI running from that to my monitor, but also running from it to the TV.
Oh, cool.
So I can switch inputs. And if I want to be playing on the TV, I'm playing on the TV. If I want to play on the computer, I'm playing on the computer.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah. And so it's something where even if you like one way of playing or another, you can have access to some of these other ones. Another cool thing is sometimes you can do like a streaming console where you can stream the games on your computer to like the handheld itself.
Cool.
Yeah. I haven't done that myself personally yet, but I do really love having that set up. I have like a nice keyboard and mouse for when I'm doing, games where you want to be like face into the screen, like seeing all the stuff that's happening. Simulation games are great for that, where it's like one game I really enjoyed is System Shock. They recently remade it, and using the keyboard and mouse, you really feel like you're like on this spaceship and exploring these like tightly packed hallways.
Yeah. And it's better to be like you're sitting down and like
Exactly.
getting close to the
because it's an immersive sim
More
is
of
like
that.
what they call it. But if I want to play something on the TV, something a little more casual, it's perfectly fine as well.
like a farm simulator.
Yeah,
we're
like a
talking about.
farm simulator.
Yeah.
Although honestly, I think most of those farm simulators expect you to have a million buttons open to
Oh,
do
no.
to do whatever, like the Euro Truck simulators and stuff, where I've seen people go all out with like they'll have all those like Logitech controllers with the steering wheel and the shifter and the pedals, and
It's legit. Like the
The-
amount of options that you
Mhm.
have.
the breadth of choice. You can go from your average platformer type game
Yep.
like Mario to something that's like so in depth space economics. The choices for what you could do with your free time when it comes to gaming are incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my kids likes doing flight simulations.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
like, they've got like all of
Oh,
the
cool.
tools, and
Yeah.
like you can practice landing at like he can pick any airport in the world. So like ones
Wow.
we've gone to, and like it looks very similar, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
it tells you if that was like good landing or a crash landing or whatever. I mean, so it is kind of cool.
That's
But
so
yeah.
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like you can even push it a little bit further. One of my dream setups, right? Like if I could,
Yep.
if I had the space to do this, I want to put myself in like a giant robot, like make like a giant robot
Mm.
cockpit where I have like 2 control sticks and then the foot pedals to like control the motion and stuff.
Yeah.
That is my dream.
Like
Maybe
you're-
one day I'll get there.
You're like in a Gundam wing. kind of
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
Play
Mhm.
like Armored Core 6
Oh, nice.
or
Yeah.
like Mech Warrior or something.
Love that.
Kind of base it off of. They used to do these pods at like tabletop conventions for like BattleTech, which is Mech Warrior.
Yeah.
Where they would like have the full setup that you would get in, and I'm like, I just want that at home.
It's so nerdy. I love it. Love
Yeah.
every part of it. Okay, so we've been kind of broaching a little bit of like some of the tech. Let's kind of
Yes.
dive into that topic a little more. What would you say, are some of the essential components for PC gaming? You mentioned like you got a tower monitor, you got some cables. Let's dive into that a little more.
Absolutely. So the things you're going to want to make sure you have is obviously a computer.
Yep.
If you were wanting to go with that like traditional monitor setup, you'll probably want like a monitor, maybe two might be pushing it. 2 works better for like, if you're working multitasking type stuff, or maybe if you're streaming.
Mhm.
But a nice monitor, usually what you want to look for is a good refresh rate. Monitors work in much the same way that like televisions do, where you have your 1080p's, your 4Ks, and then some proprietary, LED systems. So that's going to be a good one to get a little bit of help from a staff member and be like, all right, what do all these letters mean?
Mhm.
But it's basically just having something that's going to be comfortable, with you staring at it all day, just like you would
Yeah.
in like a workspace.
Yeah.
A nice mouse, a keyboard. You don't usually have to go too far out to start out with those, because you'll sort of start to develop a feel for what feels right. I went a long time with just the mouse and keyboard that came with my computer
Mhm.
before I started to really think like, oh, well, this is what I want out of this.
I'm curious, like how much of it is like preference
Yeah.
based. Like
Mm.
TikTok recently taught me about creamy keyboards and like
Yes.
the sound and sensation of that. So I like how much of that is just like personal preference on how that.
It's a lot of personal preference, and like getting into that can be really can be a black hole that you spend a lot of time on, because you can customize the keyboard down to like the individual switches.
Yeah.
But if you want to just like get a nice feel, I did spend it might have been yesterday after work, I was on the store floor just like feeling the different key types on our keyboards,
Ah,
because I like a clicky. I like a
Okay.
clicky keyboard.
Yeah.
There's 3 types: linear, clicky, and tactile.
Oh.
But I won't get into those because
Oh.
that's like deep mechanical keyboard knowledge that I don't think most average users are gonna really care too much about. But as far as thinking about accessories that are gonna like be really important for getting started, a good controller can go a long way, because especially if you're coming from console gaming,
Yeah.
where everything is sort of like there's the stuff that's already comes with the console. It's like you get this controller, you use this controller to play this way. The best
You're
controller,
used to like the joystick and like
Exactly.
the buttons and like the toggles on the top. You know, that's
It's-
just an easy transition to
Mhm.
all of the extra choice that you're going to have in PC gaming.
And a lot of games already natively support those controllers.
Nice.
So you can, one of the better ones I've used, I used it for a long time, and it's an Xbox controller.
Oh.
One of like Xbox Series X, Xbox One, those generations of controllers, completely comfortable like working with computers. Also because computers are Windows, Windows is Microsoft makes Xbox.
Sure.
They have very good support for those controllers.
And that helps.
Yes, that helps a lot.
Huh.
So a good controller, keyboard and mouse if you're going to be doing it on the screen. Handheld, I can't think of too many accessories you'd want other than maybe a dock. So you could dock the computer handheld to the TV, much like you would do with the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Keeps coming back up. But and then sort of like a controller setup for that as well. But those are sort of the big like accessories.
Right.
Now, do we want to get into tech specs, or do we want to start somewhere else first?
I would love to get into tech specs, and I wonder if we can kind of frame it too, and like for you as a individual thinking through what is best for your budget, and like and maybe some help on, like you said, because it can be a little bit of a black hole. So like
Yeah,
being
I'm just
able to
seeing like
kinda,
dollar signs to like, talking about all of this stuff.
So being able
Yes.
to kind of like rein that in a little bit for you to kind of understand. I think there's a term of like just you don't. What do they actually use as the term for this? Like something overkill specs, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
like being able to move beyond like here's what you need and here's where like you can get crazy.
Absolutely. And so to start with that thought of just like keeping it from being dollar signs everywhere, your computer probably comes with a keyboard, and that keyboard's going to be fine. Like I'm saying, in most cases, the keyboard doesn't matter so much unless it's a preference sort of thing where you want that like creamy keyboard or the clicky keyboard. Mouse, you probably have a mouse laying around, or you can pick one up. It doesn't necessarily matter as much unless you were trying to be an esports champion. But when it comes to the computer itself, you'll see 4 main things that are going to matter, probably the most important for when you're picking out either a gaming PC or maybe you're picking out a gaming laptop even. It is the CPU, the computer processor, the GPU, which is your graphics, the RAM, which is random access memory. I'll get into that in a second. And also a great album by
I
Daft
was going to
Punk.
say Daft Punk. Where's the Daft Punk reference?
And the memory itself for the computer. So the computer processor is what does all the thinking, basically, all the processing, all the numbers behind the scenes to make games work. Without getting too far into it, usually what you're looking for is that sort of mid-range processor. They're easy to see because processors are given a range of 3, 5, 7, and 9. You'll see with Intel's brand i3, i5, i7, i9. With Ryzen, which is AMD's competitor to Intel, it's the same. It's the R3, R5, 7, 9.
So easy.
So just 5 is like the easiest part to be like, processor, generally a 5 is going to be more than enough to game. You see it like on a lot of nice entry level gaming PCs is an R5. R7 or i7 is more of an upsell if you're like really worried about like pushing what your computer can do. Those games that probably like do a lot more mathematic stuff, like space economy simulators,
Yeah,
that kind of junk. We'll take maybe an i7. i9s and R9s are like industry level stuff. Like unless you are a graphic designer who's like making 3D modelings, unless you are making the games, you probably don't need an R9 or an i9.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're looking at a processor. So like a 5, great. 7, better. 9, don't need that at all. Like
What would the 3 be for? Like somebody just getting into it,
so
or
a 3 is perfect for like most computers. Most people who aren't running like video games on a computer.
Okay.
Because
if you're not gonna play games.
Got it.
Like a 3 will be fine. Like with certain simpler games, like I've played a lot of Minecraft in my day. It run an i3 or R3 runs Minecraft just fine. But when you get to that more complicated stuff, that's going to be doing a lot more processing in the background, having that 5 there or the 7 there that like is more powerful.
That makes sense.
And it's basically just a little chip in your computer, but it's the brain doing all the like thinking.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So when you hear that like that whirring, your computer is that the chip itself, or is that
the fan keeping that chip cool?
Yeah,
exactly. Because we somehow tricked rocks into thinking.
Keep your chips cool.
Of course, it's so simple.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know we're getting close to the end of our time. There's so many things that we could probably talk about. I wonder, Becca, if we should wrap up with some of like the furniture things.
Okay, yeah, Julie, could you talk to us about like ergonomic furniture and why that would be important for your gamers, and what should you look for when you're setting up sort of the furniture part of this?
Absolutely. Don't forget about lumbar support is my first big thing, because that is always the part of my back that hurts the most. If I'm in a chair that's just not supportive enough. Gamer chairs look cool, but really get a feel for like if it's supporting your full body. If you wouldn't want to work in a chair all day, you don't want to spend a lot of time gaming in it. What I found is like at home I have literally a surplus office chair that like I got from like a company that was like, clearing out some office space.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, and I got it for like $6. But
nice.
yeah, it was quite the score.
That's clever.
But great way to find a chair if you really need one. A nice part too is for rolling around so you can like get out of the chair comfortably. I love this hack of, instead of getting those normal like plastic mats that people will put down with the spikes to protect the carpet, what I've seen is people getting packs of the like wood tile or like the interlocking tile to put down a nice layer, and then it's a very fancy little setup to keep your chair rolling fine, and it looks really nice. So that's what I'd do once I get like a more dedicated gaming spaces. I'd probably do something like that.
So are you ever thinking about like, I'll never forget, somebody snuck a photo of me at my desk one time, and the way I was like hunched over.
Yeah.
Oh, it's burned into my memory. Like, are you thinking at all about like good posture, like when you're?
Yeah, honestly, it's like good posture, because being in a bad posture takes you away from the game.
Yeah,
like takes you away from having fun. And when your back is hurting, or like,
you can only play for so long if you're not feeling good.
It's like you want it to be comfortable, like you do when you're watching a show or a movie or something. Like even if you're engaged, you still want to be comfortable.
There's probably a lot of us too who are like working all day at the desk, and then like your hobby is this too. So you want it to like, it's worth the investment to find the thing. I mean, if you can be smart and go to the surplus store and get a $6 chair, great. But like,
absolutely,
if you get to a point where you're like, this thing is going to be the chair for me, and I know it's going to be worth the investment because I'm going to be in this thing for 16 hours a day, you know?
Absolutely. Like for some people, myself included, it is literally switching the input on my monitor from the work computer to the gaming computer, and then it's like now I'm doing this thing.
Yeah. We refreshed our office with some furniture, and I picked a chair purely on aesthetics, and I wasn't really sitting in it, and my fiance was complaining about it, and I'm like, it's a chair, like. And he was like, my legs are numb at the end of the workday.
Oh, it's awful.
I sat in it once. I'm like, oh yeah, this is going. And I bought a new one right away. So it does matter. It matters a lot.
Or if you get like a nice, like breathable material, that's going to be important too. Like if you're one of those people whose like temperature slowly increases while you're like doing something.
Yes.
Sitting in a leather chair after that is always kind of rough because it's like I'm sticking to it.
Well, Julie, we only scratched the surface here. It'd be great to have you back to kind of dig into this a little bit more. Thanks so much for being here. And I want to thank also my co-hosts, of course, Becca and Hilary, to our co-producers, Scott and Ann. Finally, to our listeners, yes, I want you to remember to like, subscribe, and check out our new website at nfm.com/podcast, where you can submit questions, photos, voice memos, see all our content there. Whatever you got, whatever you want to know about the podcast, you can find it there. And till next time, just remember, home is what you make it.
Thanks for joining us today for I Am Home with Tyler Weisskopf, Hilary Waltemath, and Becca Sudbeck. No one knows home quite like NFM. So if you'd like more information on home design at NFM, please check out nfm.com and leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice.